Hey gamers, today we're going to look at Luxor and its expansion, The Mummy's Curse, and any queenies involved. Let's check them out. Setup for the game is very simple. What you're going to do is put your little score trackers right here on the 0. You put 2 adventures here at the entrance of each color, and then 1 in the indicated areas on the board that you see there. You're going to shuffle all of these tiles face down, place them out around the area, and then flip them over. In areas where you see the eyes and the key, you'll just put the matching tile with those. In areas where you see the little arrow, you'll shuffle these. There's some extra ones that come in the game, and then put them out in those spaces. You'll also have your draw pile right here, your 2 mummy tokens here, your keys over here. I should mention I'm showing you a Kickstarter edition. In the regular edition, I think these are just cardboard, but these are wooden here in the Kickstarter. You'll also have a red die that you'll use later. You'll have 3 piles basically of these purple tiles, snakes, birds, and lions. I'll explain what they do later on. You'll also have 3 separate piles of different cards shuffled by the 1, 2, or 3 eye in the places over here. Gameplay is very simple. At the start of a player's turn, each player is going to get 5 cards, and they're only going to be able to play the cards on the end of their hand, which means I can take this card and move one of my pawns 5 spaces, or take this card and move them 1 space. Now whichever one I choose, let's say I chose this one, I moved them 5 spaces. Well, let's say I'm the blue player, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whenever you pass over, an adventurer passes over a group of adventurers, you have freed up another explorer to enter the cavern here. And so they would start at the staircase. Now, if you see some of these tiles, they have 1, 2, or 3 little men on them. What that means is, if I could at another time get another second man on that tile there without moving this one, then I could claim this tile, get the victory points, and hold on to it for in-game scoring. So that's basically what you're going to be doing, is moving around the board, freeing up explorers, and of course grabbing tiles, and creating sets of those as well. This is in-game scoring here, which I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, once I'm done playing, I will grab another card and put it in the center of my hand. So the next time I can only move 1 or 1, which would actually be pretty good, because I could probably, if no one else does it first, move one guy here for 1 on my next turn, move this guy here for 1, and claim that tile. Now, the iconography on the cards is very simple. The rule book tells you what everything means, but just to show you what this red means is that I get to roll this red die, and whatever it is, I can move that amount. And what the plus and minus means, I can move and explore +1 or go back 1 if I needed to. So again, if I had an explorer here and here, maybe I want to get this one or whichever one. If I had this one on the edge of my hand, I could move my explorer back instead of up, and I would just announce it when I did it, and then I could claim that tile. Now, if you notice, I would get those victory points, but also I have exposed an icon here. Now, there are 3 icons on the board. Snakes, over here is going to be birds, closer to the center will be lions, and when that happens, you're going to replace it with one of these tiles. You'll flip it over and put it down here. They could be extra cards like this, or they could be giving you a chance to grab one of these. This is worth 0 points in the game, but can help towards set collection, because you're trying to collect all 3 types of treasures in the game. Also, other things they could offer are scarabs. Scarabs you can take face down. At the end of the game, you'll flip them over for various values and victory points. But those are some of the things you can do. Now, once a snake is there, it's been revealed, this tile is permanent. So the purple will not go away. Now, I can't claim it because I've already been there, but if another explorer came up on here, they'd be able to claim that reward. Now, I should also mention, let's say that these 2 tiles have already been claimed, and it was red's turn, and they wanted to move 2 spaces, and they played a 2 card. Well, they would move actually they would only count spaces where the tiles are. So they go 1 and then 2, and they would land here instead of going 1, 2. So the more tiles are taken, the faster you're probably going to get around this board. I should also mention that some of these special tiles also come with a secret passageway. There's about 4 of these tiles in the game. So you could enter into a passageway and exit out of a passageway that's, you know, somewhere within the pyramid here. So that's what players are going to be doing. They're going to be playing cards on the edge of their hand and then redrawing and putting one in the middle. Now, if they do land on places like this special purple one or any of the yellow squares, they get a choice. They can either have a card with that icon, either 1, 2, or 3 eyes, or instead they could get a key. Now, keys are going to be worth 1 victory point at the end of the game, but they're also what you need for your explorer to get within the mummy's tomb. To get in here, he has to play one of his keys, and then he can take the first sarcophagus, and second place would take the second sarcophagus. It's up to you to decide what you want. Now, the arrow ones, they're basically just go-ahead spaces. You don't know where they are until you land on them. When you do, you get to move up that many spaces. So if a guy landed, let's say blue landed here, they go 1, 2, 3. They go an additional 3 spaces. And like I said, you're going to be mixing these tiles up, so there'll be different values, and there's extra in the game, the base game, so it'll add to a lot of variety there in your game. Now, how the game ends is when 2 explorers, any 2, doesn't have to be the same one, but when 2 explorers make it to the mummy's tomb, that is it. You'll finish out the round, and then you'll add up in-game victory points. In-game victory points are very simply described here. I told you about a set of tiles. You're trying to get 3 icons here, the vase, the necklace, and the statue there, and as many of these as you can. Now remember, there are purple tiles that will give you these, but will count as a wild card. They won't be victory points at first, but they can count as wild cards at the end. So for instance, if I didn't have a vase, but I had this, that would count as a set collection. And if you had X amount, you would get that many victory points. So 1 would be 3, all the way up to 7, which would be 42 points if you could do that. That'd be very hard. Also, you get to score on the scarab where you're at. For instance, there are different numbers on the scarabs on the walls around the room there, and whatever your adventurers were at, if you see in the tomb, it's like 13. So it gets higher the farther you get your adventures out. So you want to move all your adventures as far up the pyramid as you can to get those extra victory points, because they can be worth a lot, because you're going to be adding those up. Of course, you add up the sarcophaguses, any extra keys for 1 victory point each. Of course, here's the thing where it talks about the set collection and using wild cards, and then add up all your scarabs. And who has the most victory points wins. Now, the Mummy's Curse expansion, as a 5th player, a purple player, is going to give you more cards in the game. It's also going to come with some more tiles, which is a new treasure. It's a purple treasure that now you can add to your variety, your set collection, so to speak. You're also going to have these player boards that you would give to each player. It'll represent a special ability that player has during the game, and the book tells you what each one of these mean. You'll also be using the mummy, though, and this is the little mummy token, and what you're going to do is you're going to put the mummy token on the tile right next to the tomb to start off. Now also, somewhere on or off the board, you're going to shuffle all these mummy tiles, and you're going to deal 3 of them out. And what's going to happen is every time someone grabs one of these Horus cards, the yellow cards here, whether it be, you know, a 1, 2, or 3 eyes, is determining how far the mummy is going to go. And he's just going to be slowly marching down. If someone picked a 1, if someone picked a 2-eye card, he'd move 2. If someone picked a 3-eye card, he'd move 3, and so on and so forth. He's going to keep moving all the way around until he gets to the bottom of the entrance. When he gets to the entrance, and by the way, he also moves, for instance, 2 spaces for him, he'd skip over this and go 1, 2. All right? But when he gets to the entrance, he'll just go back to the regular card here, top tile by the tomb, and then move back down again. Now, the difference with him is when he passes over other players, he's going to knock them down. So let's say that I am the yellow player and I took a 3 card, okay? The 3 card Horus card here, okay? So the mummy would move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. On any person that the mummy came into contact with, you would knock those player tokens down, and then that player, for instance, your yellow player, would get 4 of these tokens here. And I think these are called urns in the game. But anyway, these are things that you can use to spend and get some of these rewards. Like maybe I want to cash this in and get 2 keys. Or cash this in and get a scarab. Now the book basically again tells you, the instruction manual tells you what all the icons mean, but that's how you get these points. Now any face down characters are inactive, meaning you cannot move them until you roll a red die. If you rolled a 1 or a 2, you only get to lift up one of your characters. So if it was blue, he'd only get lift up 1. If you rolled a 3 and a 4, you could lift up all of your characters. Now in any of those rolls, a 1, 2, or a 3 or 4, your turn ends after that. That's your turn because the mummy has knocked you out and you're just getting them conscious again. Now if you rolled a 5 or 6, not only does everyone wake up again, of your color, but you get to take your turn. So that's kind of what happens with the mummy's curse. Now if you don't want to wake them up, that's fine. They'll just stay there knocked out until you eventually revive them and start moving them around. And again, when the mummy gets to the entrance here, he will just move back to the first tile open in the tomb. Now also remember, when other tiles are taken in the game, he's going to be moving a lot faster over those tiles. Now what happens if you had to move and you were passing through the mummy? Nothing happens on that case. The only thing that would happen that would be bad, if you ended your turn on the same space as a mummy, then you would have knocked your own character out and that would end your turn. But that's how that's played. Now to go over some of the Queenie expansions that everything come with. Queenies are just like mini expansions that Queen games make. They're all very easy to add into your game. For instance, the first Queenie are these extra scarabs. What they do, instead of giving you victory points, they give you actions in the game, and the instructions tell you what each action does. Very simple to understand. The second Queenie, instead of having these little fast forward tokens, you'd remove them and place them with these 4 green action tokens, which lets you do various actions. Some of them playing a card and moving 1 to 3 spaces, regardless of what the card says. There's another one in here that lets you move 0 spaces. Why would you want to move 0 spaces? Well, maybe you have a guy already on one of these squares, you want to activate it again. Now the tiles can switch up during the game as well. There is a tile that also switches up the green tiles in the game. The third Queenie is the Anubis expansion. Basically, you're putting tokens here, here, and here where your players are, and it's basically you'll take them face down, you'll take one face up, and it gives you secret goals to get. So if I can get 2 beetles, I'm also going to get 5 victory points. Or if I can get a scarab and a wild card, I'll get 4 victory points. So that's basically what these are, just little extra secret missions that you can achieve to gain extra points at the end of the game. The fourth Queenie is a pretty big one actually. You're actually going to place this extra player board over to the side. You're going to take these 4 stairway tokens and put them on the corners of the game there, and whenever a player lands on there, they may go into the treasure tomb here. Now when they do so, there are tiles you'd put in the middle here that would represent little mini rewards, like a scarab worth 1 point, or maybe sometimes they have, and you see, well, I had it over a little bit there. One has a big giant X in it. There it is, X, meaning nothing happens. That sucks. But again, there are ways to get victory points here. If you have the total amount of players or explorers indicated on these tiles, you can claim one of these sarcophagus tiles here, which are placed on both sides of the board. So people can claim them. Someone can claim one, and then someone else can claim another. So you have 2 on each board, and the first person there can just decide which one they want to claim first, and the second person to get this would claim the other sarcophagus. So basically it just offers you just a different route where all the explorers are getting other things. You can go through the treasure chamber and maybe score some extra points. They do have what's called a special Queenie for the Kickstarter. Basically it's a little bit extra out of all 4 of those. Basically more green tiles, more scarabs, more sarcophaguses, and more Anubis secret missions there. That's all the special Queenie is. And then you have something called the Gift of Luxor, which came separately from the Kickstarter. It's basically some extra keys and some extra tiles, but this time instead of getting a player, you will also need a key to grab the tile. And basically that's the game. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, it's Queen Games, right? So, haha, I love it. I got to play this at BGG SpringCon last year, and me and my nephews enjoyed it. I missed the Kickstarter. I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh man, this really was good. At first, looking at it and hearing about it, I was like, that didn't look interesting, and I didn't back it. Well, when the expansion, the Mummy's Curse, came out on Kickstarter, I said, okay, now I got to back it, because I want that Kickstarter version and all the Queenies. You know, I'm a completist. I got to have it all. And I'm glad I did. Luxor is a really fun game. It's one of Queen Games' better games. Again, Queen Games rarely fails for me. Usually it hits every time. So when I see Queen Games, I'm going to give it a shot. And this one was good. I think this was up for a few awards too back in the day. Well worth it too. I think it's a fun, very simple game to play. As I've said before in past videos, my gaming group just lights up when they see Queen Games hit the table because they're like, oh, this is going to be a great game. They're in agreement with me on that. So, do you need the Mummy's Curse? I've thought about this, and no, you really don't. You can enjoy the base game as is. If you want to, it's going to add more variety to your game, and I really enjoy the Mummy's Curse. I'm glad I have it. Not only for that 5th player, but for the extra tiles, for the mummy tokens and everything that comes with it. I think it's a pretty good deal, and yeah, probably worth your time, especially if you love the base game. For all the Queenies, Queenies you can only get, sadly, through Kickstarters. And are the Queenies worth it? Let me just say this. You're not missing anything if you don't have the Queenies. If you have the Queenies or you really want them, then yeah, they're fine. They're fine. The different scarabs, the green tiles instead of the fast forward tiles, those are really neat. Anubis's secret missions that you have to do. A lot of my gamers love that one. Now I didn't put these mini games or Queenies or the expansion the first time we played it. First time we played it with my gaming group, we played it plain Jane. After that, as always, I'll start adding in expansions and Queenies, and now I add all the Queenies in there at one time because they're really not that difficult to understand. Maybe the 4th one would be the only one, the one where you have to go into the treasure chamber, but that's really neat too because it is worth your time to go in there. You're going to get a lot of treasure, but it also is going to delay you in the overall goal of the game. So there is some risk reward there that I do enjoy. The special Queenie is basically just a bunch of extra stuff for all of the Queenies. I don't really know why they call it a special Queenie, just more of the same, but that's fine too. And the Gift of Luxor, which didn't come with the Kickstarter, you can get that online for pretty cheap, and it's okay. Like I said, it's not necessary to have. That may be the one I have not played with yet, now that I think about it. I don't think we've played with the Gift of Luxor mini expansion Queenie. But anyway, regardless, you don't need the Queenies to enjoy the game. In fact, you don't even need the Mummy's Curse. The base game enough is good for you, I think. All right, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Until then, game on.